The Electricity Supply Act of 1927 established what was then known as the Electricity Supply Board. Its remit to control and develop Ireland's electricity network.
As the ESB was developing, so was the country. Rural electrification had been in full blast at this stage from about the 40s, Power went to little places where they had no electricity. People were still using oil lamps and candles, and money was spent in around the country between construction gangs and people erecting lines, and it brought industry to the country that had not been there before. The organisation had burst out of its own shoes.
When it started, there were 50 employees in the late 20s, but that very quickly grew to a couple of thousand in the early 30s, and then through the decades it grew and it grew.
As ESB grew, as electricity use grew in this country, and as we as a company grew to meet that demand, we needed more and more accommodation.
ESB's involvement in the area started with its occupation of numbers 60 and 62 Upper Mount Street. And those houses were owned by the National University of Ireland, who owned, in fact, the entire block of Lower Mount Street, and indeed some of the properties on Lower Fitzwilliam Street. Their intention was to develop that site and to develop a Senate chamber, council offices, and an examination hall, which would double as a concert hall. And then as time went on, ESB bought more of the properties as they came for sale and acquired eventually the entire site.
The old buildings were not at the one level, they were up and down different heights. And to go from one end to the other, you were going through little doors and walking up steps and down steps.
They were built originally for residential purposes. They were not built for offices. And the office use over many years, over 40 odd years, resulted in structural damage, I'd say, and the buildings had to be held together by buttresses.
At the same time, the organisation needed modern space to accommodate the requirements of a modern business.
The controversy in Dublin was fierce, the objection to Georgian society, and these people were objected strongly to the demolition of this section of the Fitzwilliam Street vista. And I'm not sure I agreed with myself. I mean, there was a wonderful view down from the top of Fitzwilliam Street right all the way down to Holles Street, and suddenly it was gone. So anyhow, for good or bad, it came.
And there was a competition run which attracted more than 100 entries, and the result being that Stevenson Gibney won the competition.
And we marched into this lovely new building, like with shiny new desks, new carpets, and everything was new and pristine.
It was a completely different world we were living in now. We all had tables, a chair, a table, a space, a table, a chair, all the way up, and the boss sat at the top looking down at us. So it was very efficient in movement. We all had our own telephones on the desk. You didn't have to get up and answer the phone over in the corner of the room.
Having been on the site for almost a century, and the development having happened in not a haphazard way, but it's been sort of a piece at a time. It's not a coordinated block, really. And I suppose that's really what needs to be looked at now, and that's really what's driving the new proposal, is to have a fully integrated campus.
It's a very difficult project because I think of the location. So there's a lot of history that goes with the street itself.
At that time, there wasn't much great regard for Georgian architecture. It probably reached its lowest position of regard sometime in the 60s. And I think we're all much more conscious as citizens today how important that heritage is to Ireland. So we're delighted that we can fix an earlier mistake, if I could put it that way.
We started off with an international design contest, which we had over 60 entries from all around the world. We tried to get what we thought was the best design here, which would be complementary to the location, but also would be something innovative while at the same time being respectful to the Georgian heritage.
We also wanted something that was going to create a good modern office environment that was energy efficient, and we felt that that balance was achieved through the Grafton and Mahoney Pike design proposal.
What this project has really made us think about is the experiential quality of Dublin. Just the thing of when you walk and the pace at which you walk and the rhythm of the windows being in pace with your step and the rhythm of doors, and we're delving deeper and deeper into the language that we've inherited in our effort to renew that language, because that's the role of the architect, is to take the tradition and to renew the tradition.
And that what is exciting about this project is that here is a major institution in Ireland, a huge number of people working within the Georgian core, with a commitment to the Georgian core.
So for us, we're giving something back to the local community. We're going to have a plaza with retail shops, restaurants, which create local employment. We also have our House 29, which is a Georgian museum connected to this building, which attracts in order 25,000 people a year. But if you look at it, we're also bringing another 1,200 people to the site. So in the order of 2,000 to 3,000 people working this site. That's a genesis for other small businesses surrounding, which will feed into that.
If you go right back to the start of ESB in 1927 with Ardna Crusha, very groundbreaking for the fledgling Irish state. And the building here, Project Fitzwilliam then, is no different in that regard. It's building on our culture and our heritage of innovation.
The ESB organisation has transformed in the last number of years. We're very much more energetic, we're innovative, we're very sustainable, and very much more about communication. The existing building no longer reflects that type of organisation. And what you really need for the future is a building which can transform with an organisation.
We go back to the original criteria. It has to make sense commercially for ESB. And when we say that, we say that it's self-financing, that the cost saved in going into a new building, plus the rent from tenants, will pay for the development itself. So from our point of view, it makes sense commercially.
So for me, this is about creating something pretty much unique now. It's an opportunity to kind of, I suppose, face into the future, and also something that integrates in a deeply sensitive way with the heritage of this particular part of Dublin.